This is I Don't Get It, the pop culture critic of my lawn cast. This features the open and minded musings of two early 50s curmudgeons. Each man, two of us, staring at the prospect of entertainment irrelevance. I'm your co-host, Bill Scurry of American Caesar Enterprises, which is a 1-900 number from 1991, which allows you to hear a series of 5 pre-recorded messages wherein I vaguely describe breakfast.
Do 1-900 numbers still exist?
I don't think so. I don't think numbers exist anymore, much less 1-900 numbers.
I always love it how they go through how Austin is go, kids, get your parents' permission before calling. Like the most blatant ass covering in the history of America.
Perfunctory, right.
Yeah.
Not since Soupy Sales asked kids to send those dirty little green papers in an envelope to his studio had there been such perfunctory ass covering.
So our younger listeners, I mean, before that there were 976 numbers, right? So there'd be ads on TV, call this hotline. Often it was just like recordings like call the Hulk Hogan hotline. Hulk Hogan will tell you about his wrestling history. And you get, yes, 1 of 5 recordings. And it was like a certain price for the first minute, less for every subsequent minute. And there'd be ads on TV about it.
But it was free money. It was just fucking free money for the person who set it up, essentially. Because it was just, people forget that phone calls, not only did they cost money, they cost a lot of fucking money for what you were getting back in the old days.
Long distance. Remember how when you would call long distance at night because it was cheaper at night?
Yeah, man. Wild. Yeah.
Thinking like this is long distance, so it's going to cost me more money. The world was different when we were young.
A phone call, it's strange. In 1990, a phone call could cost you like $32, you know?
Yeah.
It's wild.
There was that Simpsons episode where Bart calls Australia and he leaves the phone off the hook.
That's right.
And it causes such a problem. They have to go to Australia and apologize. And then he calls random places. He calls Burkina Faso. Homer's looking at the bill. Burkina Faso, disputed zone.
Do you remember
who made these calls?
Speaking of The Simpsons, Lisa was calling the Corey hotline. Where it was like one of her.
Oh, the Corey, yeah, similar.
It was just him. Was it saying words that rhyme with Corey?
Words that rhyme with Corey. That's what they would do. So anyone who was a star with Kid Appeal, like call the whatever hotline, and it would be a recording.
Freddie Krueger had one.
Yeah, sure he did.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there were dirty hotlines that friends and I called once, where you basically hear a filthy story for a minute and a half.
Yeah.
And that's what got people going in the age before the internet, friends.
As the joke went.
Again, the world was simpler.
As the joke went, on Wednesday, you're not going to like Wednesday. That's your turn in the barrel, you know?
All right. Thanks for joining us. I'm Noah Tarnow. I'm the founder and the senior quizmaster of the Big Quiz Thing, the Trivia Game Show Spectacular. And Bill, our topic this week. So here's the thing. I sent it to you as a suggestion before reading the article. I stumbled upon it in New York Magazine. Had you heard of this before?
No. Also, I don't have, I'm boxed out early, so I couldn't even read that article. I had to go do my own research.
Really? You don't have the New York Mag
No, I don't do that.
Subscription?
Nope.
It's worth it. I like New York Mag.
I never read it. It wouldn't matter to me.
It used to be really
if there was
bad.
If there was an Amsterdam magazine, maybe I would do it. But New York, I don't know, man. I'm just elevated now. What can I say?
So I just saw the headline. Clearly, pop psychology. I knew you're interested in that. I sent you the link. You said yes. I love this.
We have not done pop psych in a minute, so.
Well, we did let them.
Yeah, that's about it. I have that. Yeah.
So I sent you the link. We committed to doing it. Committing is you saying great idea and me not responding. And then I read it.
That's how most consent goes in my life.
Yeah. Hey, so the topic is, and it's all over TikTok. The topic is called PDA, not public display of affection, which is what I think when I think PDA, which is what I believe the implication of the title of the Interpol song that you heard at the very beginning of this. But pathological. Wait, what is it?
Demand avoidance.
Thank you. Pathological demand avoidance, but there's an alternate meaning of that initialism, which is something of authority. PD.
Extreme demand avoidance is one of them.
I read the New York Mag article. You read it. It led me to TikTok. It led me to Reddit. I never got it. It's a pun. I read it. It led me to Reddit. Look at that.
Yeah. It's magic.
Bill, give us the 811 on PDA.
Give me the 1-900 on PDA.
Yeah, give us the 1-900 on PDA. The recording.
Yeah.
$1.50 a first minute, 35 cents each additional minute. Kids, get your parents' permission before calling the PDA hotline.
Or don't. Just gotta let it rip, kids. Do what you want. Kids, yeah, all the children listening to this. So pathological demand avoidance is a diagnosis which is commonly shortened as no essential either PDA or EDA. EDA indicating extreme demand avoidance. This is a behavioral profile characterized by an intense resistance to complying with requests or expectations and extreme efforts taken to avoid social demands. Now, PDA is not currently included in the criteria or diagnoses listed in the DSM handbook, which I thought was important to... I didn't expect to see that, but I think it's important to state outside. DSM handbook, of course, is sort of like a rolling, cutting-edge document that is always being updated with things. And this hasn't made its way in there yet, but there's no reason to think why it couldn't in 5 or 10 years or so. So it has been suggested that any expectation or activity, such as brushing teeth or even getting ready to leave home to visit a playground, if you're talking about a child, for instance, it can trigger an avoidant resistance to normal everyday, trigger avoidant behavior. Jumping ahead of my notes here. If the demand cannot be avoided, you could get a meltdown. Again, this pertains to children and adults. It's strange how much of the literature is written specifically for children, but I think that's because people are kind of couching this in the moment as something you need to deal with in terms of identifying aberrant behavior in younger people, even though I think what we're going to wind up talking about is a lot of adult manifestation, or at least that's what I'm kind of focused on. I don't really hang around children a whole lot. But anyway, so a primary sign is an atypical resistance to normal everyday social demands for the purposes of PDA. A demand may be presented within a social interaction, and it could involve another, direct or implied expectation to cooperate. It encompasses things that are interpreted as demands, such as being told to do homework, which is that language is specifically based with children, as well as sort of societal expectations or requests. And this was interesting. Someone said the silent offer to shake hands, for instance, which maybe is something a kid can do, but that's much more the province of adults, I would think. So individuals with this PDA, they display a resistance to everyday, demands in a manner that could be obsessive. You might even think it is dramatically beyond typical. It's exhibited in a dramatic way beyond typical behavior. Hence the term aberrant, which I threw around before. So resistance can even apply to demands that they make on themselves in extreme cases. It's just, this was really, it's the reality of it, I'm sure. You're talking about internal demands like eating or peeing.
Yeah. That's an extreme case. People who can't even take care of themselves. They're frozen. Yeah. One word you didn't mention is autistic. A lot of people tie this in with the autism spectrum. Yeah, a lot of say they're linked. Not always, but often.
YouTube influencers are in they're in the Asperger's autistic sphere or the spectrum world, and that's where they're coming at this from. That's most of my research that I saw came from people who are sort of like, they're therapists. They look like they're degreed people, and they
look like therapists
on the outside. So the thing is, sufferers use socially strategic tactics. Now, this is where I feel like this is where it comes back to looking at other adults and judging people. You say they use socially strategic tactics to avoid, ignoring they don't want to look like they're ignoring the demand, for instance, or they'll proffer excuses, or they'll distract. Change the subject, sort of like that is a way of kind of like smoothing over the social bumptiousness of this thing. So again, PDA is observed in adults as well, but for the most part, they said limited representation of adult studies makes it makes it difficult to determine how it presents. I don't think there's been a lot of clinical studies in this sort of thing, nor does it seem like, like in this article, for instance, and all the other people who are talking about this, it is generally being presented as a thing that is like children ... but you make your own mind. You could see where we're going to go with this. Like this, you certainly have. I think that this behavior for me seems very plentiful in adults. That's why. But I think that the attitude of what you do with children is different because you're talking about advice for children, advice for caregivers, advice for parents, people who are going to watch this, and it's like, well, what do you need to be keep your head on a swivel for when you're observing childlike behavior? And yet I know for a fact that, well, we're in the realm of adults, and it's like this is something that we kind of need to engage in, or at least keep in mind when we're dealing with other adults, because that's my reality. But Noah, what did this trigger in you when you looked through the stuff?
Just one rubric that is helping me understand this is the New York headline, which might be misleading, but I think it's definitely it's a smart headline if you want to get clicks.
It's a magazine deck, that's for goddamn sure.
Well, but it's very much, I think, the way a lot of people approach this. The headline is, "Are you lazy or do you have pathological demand avoidance? A medical term for ignoring routine responsibilities is making its way around TikTok." It's funny.
Do you remember there was like on BuzzFeed, they would have articles like, "Are you an introvert? Are you an asshole?" Like that's how they were couching that like 6-7 years ago.
Right. Well, and it's, this is a rare case where I would recommend people reading the comments, because you read the comments on this article, or you read, there's entire Reddit subreddits about this. And a lot of people frame this as, tough shit. Life is full of stuff you don't want to do it, right? And it could seem these people are lazy or selfish or, non-diagnosable, the technical term is fucked up.
That's in the DSM handbook.
Look, that's certainly the first place I go. I'm a hard worker. I am a big believer in the philosophy of feel the fear and do it anyway. I'll get into it more later, but I certainly am not unfamiliar with anxiety, but I'm a big believer in responsibility. You do what you need to do, whether it's feeding yourself, whether it's bathing, whether it's quote unquote adulting, doing your taxes or whatever, taking care of, I don't directly have this, but taking care of your children or taking care of people who count on you, or fulfilling promises, right? Doing what others ask, service. So again, that's where I want to go with this. Suck it up. Life is hard. I know how you feel, but tough shit. That's the way it is. But look, getting back to service, I need to be more sympathetic here. The idea here is not that people are being lazy, not that people are like, no, I'd rather fuck around than do what I need to do. It's that they can't do it. It's that they are psychologically unable to do it. I have a friend who's really frozen in their life right now. And I need to forward them this article because I think it might resonate with them. They are really in a bad place and simply cannot do a lot of basic things. They feed themselves, they pay their rent, but, barely pay their rent because they're unable to, pursue a job. So when I catch myself and say, be of service and be sympathetic, I tell myself I need to be kinder to these people. They're not lazy. They're not stupid. They're not to be looked down upon. And maybe, turning this into not just general fucked upness or anxiety into an actual diagnosis, maybe that will help them. Maybe that will give them a framework to seek and find the solutions that will actually help. As for the whole pop psych element, the simply the fact that this is being talked about in a pop psych context, that it is the subject of many TikTok videos. Look, I'm not a psychologist. I believe a lot of things doing via social media are bad and dangerous. And I think diagnosing people psychologically via social media is inherently unwise because there are perverse incentives, right? It's more about getting attention. It's more about affecting a personality than really helping people, even though I'm sure many, if not most of these people have, good intentions. And of course, people are, there's an affectation of authority on social media that you certainly see on TikTok. Some of these people seem to be hectoring and obnoxious, selling, solutions to desperate people. That feels really, really icky to me. I'm reading the subreddit. There's a lot of psychological jargon that feels very pat and dismissive of authority, which we certainly need less of. It's telling that in the New York Magazine article, they sort of start out the author by asking a bunch of, trained PhD, whatever psychologists. The article is by Katie Arnold Ratliff. And she asks a bunch of people, with, real credentials. She says, of the 20 plus psychologists I approached for this article who are affiliated with 4 Ivy League schools plus 2 venerable New York City hospitals, most replied to say that they didn't know enough to comment. One wrote, I must confess that I have never heard this phrase before, asking if it was, quote, something the Zoomers dreamed up. So that makes me dubious of it. I am not inclined to listen to people on Reddit as much as I am inclined to listen to people who have
medical accreditation.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, look, those people aren't perfect. God knows. I've been in and out of therapy and not everyone's helped me.
Yeah, but they got training.
But, I'm more inclined to believe them than, trust the word of some douchebag from Yonkers. I also think direct communication is very important. And a lot of these maybe this is the right solution, but they're offering solutions how to deal with this. And it is the opposite of direct communication. There's a lot of suggestions of reverse psychology, or instead of telling someone to do something, daring them to do it, or just offering it as an option. I am dubious of that. That said, in the spirit of armchair psychiatry, I have to ask, is this just a form of anxiety? Is this just somewhere on the anxiety spectrum? I mean, aren't all, again, I'm not a psychologist, but aren't all mental disorders on a continuum from mild distress to full-on mania? But look, by treating as a pathology, maybe it'll help deal with it. But let's not lose sight of something, getting back to the beginning. I firmly believe some people are lazy. Some people are selfish. And by the way, I think those two things are inherently linked. And I don't want this to be an out for people. I don't want this to be some bullshit like, you can't criticize me for being an asshole. You can't criticize me for not doing my job. You can't criticize me for being irresponsible. You can't criticize me for letting people down because I have a disease. Someone in the comments of the New York Magazine article someone said something like, here's an example. Instead of saying, come to dinner, say dinner's on the table. When you couch it as less a demand and requirement and more as an option, people are more likely to do it. And someone said that is the more respectful way. And someone commented like, respect? What about respect for the person who cooked the meal? Right? So I'm glad there's a new way of understanding what is clearly a pervasive and insidious problem, but perhaps this isn't the way to understand it.
It reminds me and my wife had for years, we recapitulate a line from Celebrity Rehab, that shitty Drew Pinsky show that was on VH1 for years. There was, Janice Dickinson, she called herself the world's first supermodel, but she was really a fucking asshole. The woman, the Price is Right.
Yeah. Woman who slept with Bob Barker and then sued him.
No, that was different. It was Diane. That was a different one. Yeah, I forget. No, somebody else. Yeah.
But Janice Dickinson, she was Price is Right?
No, that was Janice something or other. I think they're two different people. Nonetheless, so the thing is, people were on this TV show, which is all, like the idea is that you're trying to be in some sort of rehabilitation, that's not what it was. It was a reality show. People were there for clout. The thing is, though, is that Janice Dickinson was a terrible person, and every time that she would goad people, treat them shitty, and then what she would do is when Dr. Drew would call her on her shit, she would say, "But Dr. Drew, my trauma," like as if to say, "How could you be so mean to me to tell me that?" I was like, "This is my trauma, doctor." Anyway, look,
there's got to be a limit.
There's
got to be a limit.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
I was to say, I don't think we've covered a ton of pop psych topics other than Let Them, in fact. And Let Them is more like a self-help thing that was kind of like a self-help bailiwick.
Well, but I think it's the essence of pop psychology, down to the best-selling book and podcast. That's sort of how did Dr. Phil get where he is? The guy with a PhD in history or something, and suddenly he's
by living inside of a house,
the expert on everyone's brain,
constructed 100% of the fecal matter where he got to where he is. But so, the thing is, Let Them kind of like pathologized the thing. Her whole thing was like, just drive around an impediment. Don't try to cut the Gordian knot. Don't try to untie it. It was like her thing. So it's like, instead of pathology, in spite of the pathologizing of behavior, you're trying to address it with self-help is what she was trying to do. I can't remember her name at that point. It doesn't fucking matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Actually, when you first sent this topic over, I jumped to a conclusion about what it was, not having read the article. I just sort of saw the tripartite word for it. I thought that this was oppositional defiant disorder. I had just made this I was prepared to jump into my notes. Hey, have you heard about this? Do you know this particular diagnosis?
It sounds familiar. What is it?
Oppositional defiant disorder is so close to this in terms of performance. It
definitely came up in some of the stuff I read.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I know a non-zero number of people who I have remote diagnosed. Again, damaging and disastrous as that might be.
Get in the spirit of our topic and diagnose people with no credentials whatsoever.
No credentials, just based on spuriousness and whatnot. Yeah. So I think a few of my friends, well-placed friends, have oppositional defiant disorder, which to me essentially is the idea that you say no. No is your power. No to everything. And look, that comes from a bunch of different places. We'll get into it. Here's the thing, though, is that the research I did into this topic in particular indicates that this is part of the autism spectrum. When you're dealing with the autism spectrum, so much as I know, and again, I don't have autism. I don't have any children that are local to me in my family. I don't observe autism that's played out, so I don't quite know the ins and outs of this. I just know that it is a thing that exists in greater numbers, or at least is diagnosed in greater numbers than it was. That those are biological inborn triggers. That is something that happens to your flesh. That is a I don't want to say a disease, but it is a thing that happens inside your flesh. That's PDD. The ODD part, the oppositional defiant disorder, is the result of damage. That is a response. That is a behavioral coping mechanism. That is the difference in this. Is that, again, you could say, well, God, I remember years ago I was at a hotel pool and there was a child making a keening noise for about 15 minutes.
How old was this kid?
As far as I could see, he's probably about 7 years old, and I was getting so angry because
it's a little old for it. There's a lot of little like toddlers who just scream because it's just something.
No, this was a keening noise. That figured whatever that means to you. Here's the thing, though, is that I was so irrationally angry because the sound. Until I looked at the kid, I didn't realize, oh, he's profoundly autistic. This is the sound he makes. I you know what? I fucking jumped up and I didn't say anything. I was there with my wife.
You just punched the kid in the face.
I punched him in the neck. I karate chopped him in the throat just to shut the fuck up.
Jesus.
No, look, and it's like, okay, you know what? Like, that's the difference between somebody who is just saying no, an adult who's saying no to you because they want to use the power of no, like a fucking baby. That's different from somebody who's like, well, you really can't help this. And all the research I looked into said that this was something that came up. This is your flesh is making you do this, and it's like, whatever the forbearance is, it's like it could be incumbent upon you, but it's more about the idea of observing the sort of world you're living. However, though, the effect for us is still the same. This is where I'm in accord with you. We kind of still have to fucking deal with stubborn people.
We're just being stubborn. When in fact, we are pushed into our stress response because the demand feels like it threatens our autonomy.
Why is it perhaps more pervasive now? Why is it more definable now? Why is it being defined?
There makes me want to say that I was the hospital I was born in was called Time Immemorial. It sounds like a joke almost, doesn't it?
That's not worth it, man.
It's a lot of shoe leather, but I think it's worth it. I think people will come. They'll think of this joke for years.
Enjoy that joke, friends. You can use that on your paisans.
So this thing, paisans. This thing, like so many other diagnoses among adults receiving late in life assessments from medical professionals, or what I see in some people is the idea of the self-confirmation, where they do some sort of research. Now, it sounds so loaded when you say that, but they do their own research and they come up with this idea that's like, I'm looking for a reason. Please show me this thing. Like, what's the tonic you're going to get after wondering for decades as an adult? Why am I different? I have a fucking stoppage in normal quote unquote life. I'm looking for an excuse to explain that stoppage. I want something to unstick this drain and make it see why are these fucking things so difficult. I mean, I'm talking about something that transcends this particular pathological demand avoidance. And the idea that we're talking about this framework of like, well, we live in a big crisscrossing world where people are like stumbling over themselves to give pathologies. I mean, pathology is one way of dealing with it by assigning pathologies. The idea of saying that this is something that, again, to say it's on the autism spectrum. that takes it out of it's no longer voluntary. It's compulsory. You are submitting to the whims of the flesh. You know, your decision is compounded by the fact that your brain is working against you, if you want to think of it that way. So, you know, I've heard a lot of self-reporting from people in our age cohort about in particular, what a great millstone is lifted off their necks when they get that diagnosis. I know one guy got the adult ADHD diagnosis, and one would assume he had it as a kid, but it wasn't diagnosed until he was in his late 40s. And all of a sudden, the guy mentions it quite a bit. He talks about it like, well, this explains all of this shit that I've been chasing my tail around for a long time, wondering why can't I just be normal? And that's relatively benign form of aberrance. You know, ADHD is something, you know, maybe you can like live an easier life, but for him, it was just this thing where it kind of like unstuck his drain. That's a big deal for him. You know, it explained his delay, and I put quotes around that. If that's the way I think he thought about it, for lack of a comparison to other people. So, like all the literature that I read and the videos that I watched, the people who seemed like they seemed like they had really noble aims in mind. They looked like they were child psychologists or people who were adjacent to psychology or actually had degrees. They were describing the condition less for the people who were inside of it, and they were advising people like us. They were talking about the people who were outside. It was the people like us they were trying to impart this understanding, this forbearance.
Everyone's anxious these days on some level, almost everyone. We were talking before the mics went hot I was telling you a story about someone I know who doesn't seem anxious. How puzzling that is.
Fucking annoying it is that they're not anxious.
Yeah. But, you know, we live in an anxiety-making world. I mean, even putting aside, you know, general crises, it is a world of anxiety. And look, someday we're going to discover that social media is worse for you than fucking cigarettes.
Yeah, that was like 5 days ago. We know that. You're right.
Yeah. Everyone's anxious, so it is unsurprising that something with a link to anxiety, whether it's diagnosable or just a rubric for understanding types of anxiety, that is going to become more prominent. There is a greater understanding of mental health. You know, I read something interesting once that I guess this is tied in with anti-vaxxers. They're like, well, clearly something must be causing all this autism because we never had autism 50 years ago. And someone's like, really? You didn't have it 100 years ago? Grandpa who was obsessed with trains, you know, it's just...
Didn't make eye contact? Things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We understand things in different ways now. It's just because something isn't being diagnosed doesn't mean it isn't happening. Of course, the social media thing, everyone's an expert, right? So you have a theory, you have to dress it up in expertise language. I mean, look at what we're doing here. Although I hope on this show, we always try to admit, like, we don't know jack shit, take our opinion with a beach of salt. A beach of salt? A grain? I was thinking a grain of sand.
A coastline of salt? Yeah.
Coastline of salt. An underground grotto of salt.
What is that? There's that big thing or was it Uruguay? The sort of salt plains that are like 100 miles. They're like pink salt. People drive. Yeah, so people drive cars across them. It's really beautiful looking.
Uruguayan thing of salt. But I don't know. Look, this might be a cousin to anti-vaxxing, which I'm not. But all the fucking toxins out there, the microplastics. I am not surprised if this shit has totally fucked with our brains in ways that might lead to things like this: anxiety, fear, depression, etc. To quote a great thinker, Mr. Peter Paul Galtieri, quote, "Between the mercury and fish alone, it's a wonder why there's not even more kids jumping off bridges." So there you go.
With kids with PDA, they're struggling because they're anxious and they have a need to control. With kids with OD, they struggle because they have such a resistance to authority figures.
Noah, would you have liked pathological demand avoidance? Would it have given you an out when you were a kid? Is it something that you just wanted to indulge in and you didn't get to?
All right.
Here we go.
So
here we are.
Let me take it down a little here. The answer is yes. Reading about this kind of triggered me, and I'm not joking here. I kind of wonder if I have this. And be a little confessional here. I have a meeting with my therapist this afternoon. I plan to bring this up. I hate doing things. Often I hate even doing things that I quote unquote want to do. Now, as I said at the beginning, I'm a big believer in feel the fear and do it anyway, and big believer in responsibility. So I do things because I need to, because I'm supposed to, because I have to, or even getting back to the main thought that drifted through my brain for much of my childhood, because I will get in trouble if I don't. Which is odd, because that's almost the opposite of the whole idea that PDA is a rejection of authority. So there are aspects of this I don't relate to and aspects of this I really relate to. You know, they talked about specific signs like, oh, they might seem very sociable and make eye contact, but deep down there's a great deal of anxiety. And that is true of me. People who don't know me well tend to think I'm the ultimate extrovert, but I actually think of myself as an introvert. And I am always pushing myself to do things because I need to, or because I'm afraid of the consequences if I don't. I guess those are the same thing. Also, I feel the fear and do it anyway, but contrary to the theory behind that in the book of that title and what many therapists have told me over the years, if there's something I'm afraid to do and I do it, it doesn't really reduce my fear for the next time, right? I don't get inured to things like exposure therapy. I don't really think would work on me. And one thing that's brought up in some discussions of this is they say what is going on with these people is their nervous system is in a state of shock or is in a state of collapse or paralysis. And that might be an explanation. So I'll tell you something about myself. I have had chronic pain for half my life. It's been very hard to deal with. I've tried nearly every commonly known technique and nothing has helped. I have had many therapists tell me I am one of the few patients they were unable to help. And maybe that's what's going on here is I do it anyway, but at the cost of attacking my nervous system. The end of the New York Mag article said that, the accusation that these people are selfish or lazy falls apart because if you were lazy, you would be having fun. And these people aren't having fun. They hate being this way. And I certainly don't like being this way. I mean, I hate being in pain. I hate being afraid all the time. I hate constantly fighting. I'm exhausted. And, I also admit that while I believe in hard work and responsibility, I don't live up to my ideals all the time. I am more lazy than I think I need to be, even though I think at root I'm a hard worker. So obviously this would appeal to me as a kid. And it definitely resonates with me. Lord knows I could use a new therapeutic approach. I often feel I am literally unable to improve via standard therapy. That said, I am glad I'm a hard worker. I mean, maybe it's not worth the cost, or maybe it is worth the cost. Because what am I afraid of? And what clicked in my head when I was young? I don't want to be a loser. So if I was young and this was a known thing to me, I might embrace this, lie in bed every day, do nothing, feel like I have an excuse to, fail or not try, and live with that. And, maybe today I would be some pathetic basement dweller. And while I try to have sympathy for those people, I thank God every day I'm not. If the cost of me being, a man of some accomplishment, and I believe a man of integrity, and I believe an interesting person, in my opinion, if the cost of that is attacking my body, I'm not sure it isn't worth it.
Yeah, well, I had a personal reaction to this one. This particular pathology doesn't really apply to me. It is something, again, it's exterior or external. That's why I felt like I was being talked to by these things in terms of how to deal with people who might, in fact, I might come across people who are suffering from this. And again, the term suffering is used loosely here, but
it ain't fun.
No, it's not
that's
fun.
What they all say. It ain't fun. I mean, they quote one kid who literally can't get out of bed, and he says, "My life is shit."
Yeah, but
he has that awareness,
right? And I mean, where's the line between that and oppositional defiant disorder? I don't know, man. That's a different stuff. Whatever. Here's the thing I'm happy that I'm not. This doesn't apply to me. But the thing is, it's like I had my own arrival at self-description or self-confirming in a numeracy learning disability that I've dealt with my entire life that, has, in a way, it's been able to rewrite my childhood years to some degree. Here's the thing. It doesn't fix the silent weeping I did in the back of classrooms for, when I was 7 years old back on Long Island, mortified and embarrassed that I couldn't count out coin change in classroom exercises. It's just some of the
did you get bad grades in math? Is that
terrible.
What happened?
Yeah.
Really?
Terrible.
Interesting.
Yeah. And again, it was the idea that's like, why aren't you just, like you're a smart kid, why aren't you applying yourself? And it's like, I'm trying here. And it's like, it's not working. I honestly don't understand the concept of numbers in a way that I could use them. But that's not something that anybody, it's like, oh, you're an idiot. That's what this is. You're embarrassment. You're a loser. Like you said, not necessarily a basement dweller, but again, whereas the topic doesn't affect me, for me to think about why was that teacher insensitive to this? Why was the teacher watching a kid weeping in the back of the class and not doing anything about it, not understanding with the 1981 state of whatever kind of pop psych existed, whatever training there was in place for a first or second grade teacher didn't kick in. I was left alone. I was sitting there on a raft on the middle of the ocean without any help, and so it's like, well, that tells me that it's like, well, what if I was that teacher looking at that kid? I would be more in tune with whatever that meant, just because it's like, well, this just transcends not applying themselves into counting out dimes, nickels, and pennies. It's like, this child literally can't do it. There's a difference between application and inability to do so.
Hey, can you do the dishes for me?
Nope. Not anymore.
No, don't stop. I didn't know that you were already doing them.
It's too late. You ruined it. I'm not doing them anymore.
Bill, is this the rise of PDA in any way a sign of the apocalypse?
Far be it for me to impugn pathologizing children and adults with new diagnoses, especially late in life diagnoses, but I think this may go to your initial point. I have the feeling or my fear rather, is that pathologizing everything.
I think pathologizing works.
Pathologizing.
I think pathologizing is a word, but
I think it's got the side effect of removing agency and in one way. And then The thing is, people have this kind of like, fuck, let it rip mentality. I can't control my shit, so it's your problem now. Yeah. I'm taking a big jump here, but here's the thing: there's actually
it's a risk. I mean, I said that before. It's a real risk.
There's a meme expression that I saw. I don't know why I saw this specifically on Blue Sky. Maybe it's the same person who keeps making it there. But this person quotes this thing, and I was like trying to look for the exact verbiage. It's, God has let me live another day, and I'm about to make it everybody else's problem. Like I've seen that phrase used, right? And it's like, oh, ha ha ha! Oh, that's such a funny joke. It's such a goof. It's like, until it isn't. Until you are fucking making your life, a problem with everybody else. So that could, in fact, I mean, I think that the kind of dominoes of pathologizing could be, but this in particular, I kind of no comment on it, just because I'm generally not qualified. But there you go.
I'm trying to be sympathetic here, both to other people and to myself, that this might be good in that it gives people a new understanding and a new way of organizing and viewing their problem. And Lord knows I'm, as much as anyone, know that sometimes you need to approach, sometimes problems are not easy to solve. Mental problems are not easy to solve. Behavioral problems aren't easy to solve. And it's always good to have a fresh approach. But yeah, I worry that this will give people an excuse to be selfish or lazy, which frankly, I think is the bane of existence. I've said this many times, 99%, maybe not 90, but more than 90% of problems in the world are because people are bad at their jobs. And probably 90% of people being bad at their jobs is people, well, no, but a big chunk of people being bad at their jobs is people being lazy or selfish. Laziness and selfishness, I think, are, I believe in service. I believe in kindness. I believe in industry. And I think those things are the bane of existence. So I really fear, I'm not doubting that this is a real issue for people. I mean, I'm certainly suspecting that in my own mind, but I fear that this will give people an excuse and accelerate what many people see, and I don't necessarily not see, as a worrying trend towards selfishness.
Hey, what's up? You never texted me back. Sorry, I was planning on it, but then so much time had passed that it started to build up like a demand, and then I felt like I just couldn't answer you, and then too much time had passed, so I got so anxious about it that I just had to like delete the text.
Oh, well, let's close this thing up with our final subjects, jealousy, and our array of topics. Is there anything about this subject that makes you envious?
Yeah, sure. Wish I had known this was a thing years ago. Wish I could have brought this up to a therapist a long time ago. I mean, maybe it'll be a dead end. Maybe it'll be a wall. Maybe I'm not seeing it. Maybe, 5 days from now, I'll look at this and go, no way, this isn't me at all. It was just caught me in the right moment. But I don't know. Feels like this could be a tool that could be useful. Would have been nice to have discovered before I was 50. But I'm not jealous of all these people talking about it on TikTok. To be that person, to be an influencer, has always seemed so exhausting to me. And even the people who try to help just come off as such, obnoxious, know-it-all kind of dickheads.
Talk about industry, but yeah.
I wouldn't want to be them. So I don't know. But again, I need to be sympathetic, right? Maybe most of them really want to help. So I don't know. I'm jealous. I'm jealous that this is a way of looking at the world that wasn't available to me until now, but I am not jealous of the people who are sharing it with the world.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm only jealous in that I wish some eagle-eyed pedagogue had looked at me. I keep thinking of the same teacher. Maybe it's not fair to keep thinking of Mary Carey.
Hey, look, there are shitty teachers out there. I look back at teachers I had as a kid. Some of them are like, wow, they were great. And I'm like, some of those people were terrible.
Mary Carabello was not a shitty teacher, but it's like this was a ball that was dropped. And, it was the beginning of a domino effect. Let's say this
Mary Carabello was probably had a very hard job and was not paid well. So let's cut her some slack.
That's hard to say. It's hard to say. But either way, it's like I wish I had been regarded. My various numerological failures, and some person saw the pattern in them and said, okay, there's something here. But that it would have saved me years of stomach lining and even boosted my potential SAT score out of the sewer that it landed in, to something I probably could have been more prepped for. At least I could have not been shocked by how low the number was when it finally came in.
Your SAT score?
Yeah, it was.
I took the SATs are bullshit. I took them twice. The first time I fell asleep during the SATs. I did all right. The second time I was all prepared. I read the books and I dropped 20 points. Total bullshit.
What's your score? Just out of curiosity.
I don't remember.
But you got a break on the price or something.
How long has it been since that was an important detail to remember about?
Not in our lives.
Remember how everyone knew?
Yeah, and yet it made a difference. It made a fucking difference getting into colleges in 1992.
I guess so, but what a load of horseshit.
It is, in fact. All right, so
college. Yeah,
where would you put this on our Felonian scale? No, of all of our top.
Right. Well, so the last pop psychology thing we looked at, you mentioned let them times weird. Now, I know weird was more about the political accusation of, Tim Walz et al.
It was still a remote diagnosis. I think you're right about that.
He was completely right. Not that many Americans, listened, unfortunately, but he was right. Let them times weird divided by, and this might surprise you, 1/8 of meatfluencers.
Meatfluencers, yeah.
Because meatfluencers were, with no authority, remote diagnosing problems with people.
You need more pork testicle in your life. That's the difference here.
Definitely bucking the trend. And again, I don't think PDA bucks the trend nearly as much.
How many chicken combs are you eating a week? That's your problem right there.
I'll admit, I didn't. I pathologically avoided spending a lot of time figuring out the Felonian scale for this one. So whatever. It seemed like it made some perverse form of sense. So let them times weird divided by 1/8 of meatfluencers plus 32.1111171.
Number 8. Number 9.
Yes.
Number 8 was The Simpsons.
Turn me on dead man.
This was a topic that was dry, but important, I think, or at least it's got a frisson of pop psych, but there's something is also a little saucy and buzzy if we're going to start writing mass media blog posts about it and having TikTok feeds and there are TikTok influencers who are trying to exhibit the stuff. You will hear some of the interstitials for this. Yes. So I also thought of a number too. It was a numbered topic. One of our earlier ones from the first quarter of our lifespan. 13 reasons why.
I forgot about that. What was it? It was a Netflix show about depressed teenagers?
It was a girl who was going to kill herself, and the 13 Reasons Why were a series of cassette tapes, I think, where she...
but it was fiction, right?
Yeah, it was fiction, but people took it like it was threatening because, again, they found the tapes after she was dead. You didn't realize that you were listening to essentially the last will and testament of a woman who killed herself. And that was what was playing over the show until it was too late, and then the viewer felt a little complicit.
Tapes? Was it set in the 80s?
I don't know. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something weird like that.
Wax cylinders. It was set in
wax.
The naughty 90s, 1890s.
It was papyri in various forms of pounded scroll. Yeah,
it was Gregorian chanting.
All right. Well, that takes us to the end of yet another episode. You've come on a real journey with us, and we appreciate the fact that
Thank you for coming on our journey.
You're in our ox wagon with us. So if you'd like to find past episodes, look on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube, of course. Skeet to us at noahandbillshow.bsky.social. Write to us, noahandbilldon'tgetit@gmail.com. Reviews, we love them. Do something about that. We would love to sit in the bask in the reflective glow.
We're not telling you to do it. We're just suggesting it as an option.
Non-refundable option. So at Bill Scurry.
Well, we don't want you to feel like authority is demanding things on you.
I don't think it really applies to our listeners.
It all comes back to that.
At Bill Scurry.
No one's listening anymore.
For bsky.social, at William Scurry on Twitter and Insta and all those things. YouTube.com/AMCs where you can find this podcast and all the other videos that I make along the way. And then Noah will give you non-compulsory goals to meet.
I am all about the Big Quiz Thing, bigquizthing.com, America's finest provider of corporate and private live trivia events. Nationwide, worldwide, in-person, virtual, hybrid. I'm going to announce it here, Bill. We have a big thing happening on, it's just around the corner. March 2nd, 2026, I will be back in New York hosting a public event, the rare public Big Quiz Thing event, where it all started, Bill, the Slipper Room on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, where we did our very first Big Quiz Thing events before many people now legally considered adults were born. Tickets are on sale probably next week. Slipperroom.com, I believe, but we're going to post it on our website and all that. But in the meantime, hire us for your corporate team building event, fundraiser, client appreciation, bar bat mitzvah, birthday party, you name it. The best in trivia service for over 20 years. And I am personally on Instagram at the Noah Tarnow I was just on vacation, dude, and I think I posted once. I'm terrible at this shit.
Yeah.
It's the obligation to do it. That's what gets me, right?
Yeah.
It's the feeling that I need. Okay. I'm messed up. You learned a lot about me today, friends. So, learn more about me at bigquizthing.com.
All right, everybody. So until the next episode of this podcast, well, you certainly can listen to us. You don't need to. We don't get it.
A production of American Caesar Enterprises 2025.